Thank you. Welcome, everybody. We're very excited that you're here for Construction Tech Tuesday with Reid Rowlands. And the Passivhaus Accelerator is a collaborative online platform for sharing innovation and thought leadership in passive house design and construction. We publish articles and interviews, produce weekly virtual confabs with passive house pioneers from around the world, and elevate the work and programming of the passive house movement's leaders, practitioners, and organizations through interviews, articles, social media campaigns, video, and podcasts. Our aim is to catalyze zero carbon building by accelerating the adoption of passive house building. With our co-hosts, Kevin Brennan, Shannon Pendleton, Sean St. Amour, and Mark Willey, we produce Construction Tech Tuesday to share the technical, the technique, and the technology of passive house construction tech. Each week, we welcome guest practitioners to dive into the detail of practice with the builder and tradesperson as our target audience. We welcome folks from all corners of the construction and design world to join us each week, and we're happy you're here. And with that, I'll hand it off.
I'm Kevin Brennan. I'm in New York City. I'm a passive house construction tradesperson, I guess you could say. Tonight's episode is going to be great. Reid's going to take us from Energy Star to a passive house. It's quite exciting. It's a typical construction for the East Coast. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to point out to the crowd that behind my virtual background here is one of the infographics from the Passivhaus Accelerator's new website. So we want everyone to use them. They were created under a Creative Commons license, copyright, and I'm just going to click through as like a basic kind of like overview of what Passive House is and the infographics. So I'll share my screen real quick. So it's the Passive House basic design principles that are all around. We're going to focus on 5 tonight, the 5 basic principles, and just keep in mind that we'll be asking the crowd which one we're talking about, because we're going to be doing some polling questions and talking about some details at some windows and some other areas. But we really want everyone to have like an awareness of which one we're focusing on. So these are the infographics, and the basis of Passive House and what we do and the message you have to convey to your team and the people you work with are the principles of Passive House. Principles shouldn't be broken. They should be abide by. And the big one that we always talk about is continuous insulation, full thickness insulation throughout the entire enclosure. This great infographic gives that full look to it. It's been updated. It's great. The next one is airtight construction. So airtightness is sealing in the building so that the mechanicals can do their job and that the air stays in. The warm air stays inside, the cold air stays outside, or vice versa, depending on the seasons. We do that with membranes. We do it with tapes. We do it with plywood. We do it with sealants and different foams and everything like that. We also have high performance windows, which we'll talk about. Most of the time it's triple pane based on your climate, and the positioning, windows and doors. Where does it go? Is it in line with the insulation? So there's a lot here. Then the last principle, or second to last principle, is no thermal bridges. So eliminating the thermal bridges within Passive House so that we don't have any cold spots, and then that our value in the insulation is as even and smooth as possible. And then the last one is the mechanical heat recovery ventilation. So the ventilation is the one that's the added one that keeps the air fresh. And we'll talk about this most likely in the overtime for this project. So I welcome everyone to Passive House. Please use these infographics to train and teach your coworkers, your friends. They're updated. They were created so that people can share them, and we're going to use them as a tool during this during the presentation. So just keep it as a reference. I'll throw in the chat where you can download them as well. So I'll pass it off to my next co-host. Thanks, guys, and Reid, I look forward to the presentation and participating.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm in Kamloops, BC, and if you remember, we'll go back in time. The second episode of our event, we actually were here looking at details on Daryl's project, and so just based on what Kevin just said, if I can, 1 second here, I was trying to work. Okay, so if we have it, air barrier, really good windows, insulation that's protecting the thermal bridges, and the HRV. Can I see the ducting in there? Oh, it's one of those pipes in there. So there you go. So there's the infographic to real life, and enjoy your tonight. I'm looking forward to the conversations we're having.
Sean, thank you so much for using the 475 mobile cam today. We are all very dizzy, so we need to sit in our chairs and get ready for a presentation. I'm overjoyed by the infographics shared by Kevin. And we can all acknowledge a lot of work went into the website, but I got a text from Michael Ingwe earlier, and he said, did you notice that there's an infographic missing on the principles of the PHA website? And I said, I'm not. Can you take me through that? And he said, well, if you look at the script that Sean put together, it says that one of the principles is missing is the Zach Semke mic drop. And I think it's all important that we acknowledge when Zach has the mic, he's got something amazing to say. And when he's done with it, it hits the floor and we're in silence. So that was my point for tonight. And there's some special things that are gearing up for this evening. Shannon's going to walk us through this, and we had a wonderful run through last night with Reid. It only went 3 hours, so I hope you have a snack in front of you, and we look forward to it.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome everyone to tonight's Construction Tech. I see a lot of familiar faces out there, and I see some faces I know who showed up tonight for the first time to my knowledge. So welcome, you are in the right place. So chances are, if you've been to a building science conference on the East Coast, you've already met tonight's guest. He's a certified passive house builder, trainer, and consultant, and a founding Passive House member of Green Building United. Like someone in the White House, he's a Delaware resident, where he runs world-class supply and South Face design. He's been a commercial developer in Newark's downtown district, worked with the city and state to promote Passive House, and last fall helped them formally adopt their stretch code to the 2018 IECC. As a friend, I know how much time he donates to make buildings better. But tonight, Reid is going to be asking for your help. So open your chat window and get ready to brainstorm some Passive House strategies, because your idea tonight may be a lucky Delaware resident's single family, low income Passive House in the very near future. Please join me in a warm welcome to Reid Rowlands.
Thank you, Shannon. I would make one correction. You said I live in Newark, when actually I spent most of my life in Newark, Delaware, but moved 50 feet into Pennsylvania. I literally can see Delaware out the back window. But the office and everything is in Newark, so we're good to go. So this is the Wesley House. And Shannon, thanks for the introduction and the kind words. Thanks also to Passivhaus Accelerator for allowing me to present, and their continued work to advance Passive House around the world. And to be honest, I think some of you may be here thinking that you were going to see a presentation on how we took an Energy Star house to passive, when actually I want to go over the existing Energy Star design and hopefully crowdsource from some of you the necessary upgrades needed to get to Passive House. So with that in mind, I look forward to some back and forth discussion on the proposed design changes. I've worked with the state of Delaware in the past, and I was approached by them to see what it would take to get one of our state's low-income housing developers to up their game and build to Passive House. Having focused much on Passive House, I really didn't know that much about Energy Star for homes, so I downloaded the checklist just this morning. And to be honest, it seems to me to be just a little above code, with some categories actually being code. So we're going to push the envelope up, and it's a huge step for this developer to go from Energy Star to Passive House. So the developer, NCall, is a nonprofit low-income developer like many around the country. They've been building the model we will be reviewing for a few years now. Since this is going to be their first Passive House project, and cost is always a big factor, I'd like to let them build this as much as possible as they already have. As an example, I'd like their framers to do what they already know how to do and have done before. So I'm not going to look at double walls, no Larsons, no SIPs. Just keep this as building as standard as construction as possible. The state agency Energize Delaware asked me to work with them to calculate the difference in cost between Energy Star and Passive for one of their models. Once we get the numbers, they're going to write a grant to Energy Star and they will fund the difference between those. There are 2 homes. Hopefully we get to do the 2 homes, as you'll see later. That'd be the best scenario. So here's an aerial shot, which NCall has purchased these 3 properties. Property 235, big vacant field, and below that 225, and this one 217 with 2 buildings on it. They're in the process of demolishing the 2 existing structures, and they're going to apply for subdivision to 4 lots. This is a street view looking south. The Wesley house actually should fit in fairly nicely. Actually, this is the vacant lot. This is the one that they're going to demo, and also Dover's Finest, which looks like it was a temple. I'm sure it was a house prior to that, but those are the 2 that will be demolished and turned into the 4 properties. Back to the aerial shot. This is where I've laid out what I would expect to be the approximate location of each of the units once subdivided. Maybe if this group could think about what type of monitoring we might want to do, besides some of the obvious Energy Star, indoor air quality, maybe outside air temp. Maybe put some of your comments or suggestions in the chat, and we can go over that later on in the second half maybe. But I think it's a unique opportunity to monitor 4 identical units. 2 will be Passivhaus, 2 will be Energy Star. We could also average the 2 Energy Star and the 2 Passivhaus to compensate for lifestyle. I was originally thinking of 2 passive, 2 Energy Star, but given how quiet our passive homes are, probably should do every other one so everybody enjoys a quiet neighborhood. So here's some views. On this slide, the front elevation on the left faces the street, which mostly faces west. And the left elevation, which is on the right, faces north with 1 window. So north side, 1 window, that's pretty good. The right elevation on the left side faces south-southeast, 2 windows. You'll see in later slides, I'd like to probably put 2 windows here to get a little solar gain in the wintertime. And the rear elevation faces mostly east. And here's a plan view of, on the left, the crawl space. So we're thinking of taking the crawl space, which right now is unconditioned, into the conditioned space, because that's where they're putting some of their mechanicals right now and then penetrating that conditioned space. So right off the top, we need to get rid of these vented windows, and we need to isolate this foundation because that's just a thermal bridge right there. They also have a stairwell from here. I'm taking 3 or 4 steps down to get to that crawl space. So kudos to them for getting existing blower doors at 2.5, 2.7 ACH with that door going to an unconditioned space. And up here, you can see the water heater. I barely see it, but it's 3 feet wide. Unfortunately, it's not enough space for a heat pump to stick in there. So we need to figure out how to do that. We could do a split system, but that's a little costly. And living room, dining room, 2nd floor, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. This area will make a nice chase for some mechanicals, I'm sure. So this elevation shows the crawl space, 3.5 feet. Right now, they've got their insulation and air barrier here. By taking this into the conditioned space, we're going to move this down, and that's where we'll get into detailing. Do we just bring it down? We've got to figure out how to get the air barrier up, over, and transition. Or do we take it under the footer and up and over? Here are some existing conditions in the drawings. In the attic, got a raised heel, R38. I'm sure we're going to take an energy model to tell us how much, but we're going to raise that heel up a little bit. Our walls are 2x6, 16 on center, Tyvek with an R20 bat, and the floor R19. So here are some assumptions on what we're going to do with this property. One, we're going to build the structure as much as possible to how they've done. We're going to replace the house wrap Tyvek with liquid flashing. We're going to need continuous insulation. We're going to need to picture frame the rough openings flush with the outside insulation. We're going to treat our rough openings with liquid, throw in some triple pane tilt turns. We'll need an ERV and some mini splits. You got to figure out that heat pump water heater, always keeping in mind that design is going to be driven by cost because of low income purchasers. So get ready to speed detailing tonight. We're going to crawl space. We're going to insulate either under or over. We're going to detail the rough openings. We're going to transition outside air barrier to inside ceiling, and to save lumber or not, because we all know it ain't cheap anymore. And then we'll talk about installing the window.
Thanks, Reid. And this is a good time to bring up the poll. So if everyone can see the poll on their screen, if you can move it to the side so that it doesn't obscure Reid's beautiful graphics, this poll is going to stay up the whole time, and we're going to talk about some details and the Passivhaus strategies we can use to take them from Energy Star to Passivhaus. So keep that poll up. And when Reid gives you the prompt, it's time to vote. But until then, put your suggestions in the chat. We'll keep track of them, and we'll look at them during the after hour one by one. Reid, go for it.
Cool. All right, so we've got the foundation that right now is unconditioned, and this is a porch. So as you can see, we're going to have to break this here. We're going to eliminate these vents. And if I zoom in, right now they're speccing block, but if we convert it to poured wall, there's our air barrier, and we're going to just break that porch out later. So that's the plan for that portion there. I'll just run you through our first floor. I hate when that does that. There's our steps going down to that crawl space. Here you can see we've got one window. With a living room, I think a window here. And if we take these two down to one window, maybe slightly larger, be a trade-off. We're still doing two windows and two rough openings. So the cost should be small, but we're going to get that solar gain right there pretty good. And then moving up to the second floor, we've got our chase. We've got our 2-3 bathrooms. And again, no window here. But if we match these windows, single windows here, and add a window here and here, we're going to get a lot of nice solar gain in the south on the winter side. Oh, let's dive into what do we do down here. Again, we're going to take this conditioned space down here, keeping in mind we only have 3.5 feet of clearance here. So one option would be to have our insulation here without going around the footer. The issue here I see is that thermal bridge straight up into the unit. Even though we're going to take some of this insulation between the joists, it's still a bridge there, not as far as here, but still there. But with the poured wall being the air barrier, we can easily tie this to the outside. And then our vapor barrier here gets tied to the wall, so we will be continuous. Now that's one way, and keep in mind that height, because we've just lost, well, this is 8 inches, but an energy model is going to have to dictate how much we have here. If we brought it down here and put these two sheets here and out, this corner is a thermal bridge. But another option would be to take some geotech foam. We'll use that as the form to pour our footer. We can then get our gravel, put our insulation down. We retain the height of the 3.5 feet, which is still not much. And we've got continuous, straight down over, under, and up, and then we can tie that straight in. So there's the two strategies that I have. One would be this 3.5 feet. We're losing at least 8, if not more inches. This is not enough for mechanical. So we're going to have an increased cost if we go this route. We're going to have to add another 8 inches at least of concrete here, as opposed to the cost of going under. So as I look at our polls, you can vote for under or over. So once we decide that, we're then going to migrate to the outside here. And we've figured out what we're going to do down there. Now we have to tie that foundation
Reid, why don't we
wall.
pause for 1 second, just in case anybody missed it. It's time
Sure.
to vote on the first poll before we move to number 2. So number 1, it says continuous insulation, thermal bridge free construction. So that's our passive house principle. And the strategy we're looking at choosing before we look at all the suggestions are one of 2 strategies. Slab inside the foundation wall, or excuse me, insulation inside the foundation wall and under the slab, or outside under the footer and also under the slab. So everybody choose 1 or 2 of those.
Kevin, you have an amazing screen behind you. Would you like to elaborate so that people can have some insight when they give their answers?
Yeah, so when last night we were talking about this this section, we were really only wanted to really focus on the insulation detail here. So meaning which insulation strategy makes the most sense of that Reid has proposed. There are a few out there and we're up for discussion, but really which one makes the most sense for what is being presented. So I know there's some air barrier questions and other things in here, but really we just want to focus on what the insulation strategy is for that continuous insulation. And embedded into that process as well is making it thermal bridge free. So that's my my little preamble there.
Can't help but commenting, Reid, when you change the screen and show us the different layers, it really encourages us to think about that process in the virtual format.
Yeah.
Because this is why we're doing this incredible exercise to consider these options. So thank you.
You know, I was thinking the other day, and it probably will not be that far into the future, but at what point do we take a SketchUp drawing almost for a woofy model, a shell, that's it. And then you just push the button and AI does it all.
I think Prudence's ears are ringing right now because
Really?
if you watch Prudence Ferreira and know what she's working on with all the kids and their Python and their Grasshopper and their Ladybug software, that's exactly what they're doing. And Reid, I cannot wait until we can all push a button because everybody, it should be easy. How hard do you make it?
Careful, you architects.
We're trying to be irrelevant.
AI will run 30 variations of a woofy model and spit that answer out like that.
So Reid, because you brought up this option and Shannon followed with what Prudence is working on, everyone tonight will receive a free pass to the happy hour tomorrow.
We're on the outside now. And in this drawing, as soon as I get zoomed in, so the plywood is proud of that foundation wall here. I've seen it flush or proud. But what I would suggest is we need to seal that to this poured wall. So what I have here is Prozoka joint and seam. You can use tapes, whatever you want. But that's the fiber. It's more fibers is the joint and seam to fill bigger gaps. So we'll hit that whole perimeter with a bead and then come back and flash that. Now we need to figure out what to do about our rough opening. And there would be part of the second poll. We could take it and we don't know how much insulation right now because it has to have an energy model to do that, but let's just say 4 inches. So if we use framing lumber here, we may need to marry this up to 4 inches. So we could either take, in that case, it's 2 by 6, rip it down to 4 inches, or we could use maybe Advantex or something. From inside drywall straight out. We only have 3/4 inch width here. It's a less thermal bridge, but not as structurally strong, maybe strong enough. Or we could take a normal 2x4, 3.5 inches, and pack it out with either 1/2 inch plywood, or in this case, I've thrown Armatherm in there. And actually, I'm going to start with this picture because it's a pretty picture. Everyone might not know Armatherm, the structural foam. I think Sean was talking about it earlier. Somewhere I have a pretty picture of what Armatherm is. It's a structural foam, and this is the PFHA project in Harrisburg. So that orange is a density of 2,150 PSI. That steel base is 2 feet square, and the thickness of the Armatherm is about 8 inches. And that's holding up a 7-story commercial building. So that is breaking that thermal bridge from that steel down to the ground. Now, what I'm proposing back here is certainly not 2,000 PSI. We would use 250 PSI, which has a better U value anyway. So that's Armatherm. And we've got options of just taking framing lumber to pack out, plywood, or do we pack out with a little bit of Armatherm there? I have calculated on this size window, and I think it's 3x5, it's about $15 of Armatherm for a 1/2 inch by 1.5 inches. So not intolerable by any means. So the poll, you need to vote for take your your 2x and rip it, plywood. I've seen it done both ways, or pack it out with a little thermal breaking on that Armatherm. I think we all like that. We just need to keep dollars in mind. It's really, because this is a low-income family project. So I'm going to move on to, we're going to treat the rough opening with liquid. You could do tapes, but I'm a liquid guy. Then we're going to flash all our 4x8 seams and any nail heads that are penetrating. We're going to paint the whole building with MVP, which normally people would think should be pink. But as of a week ago, it's available in black for rain screen. Brand new. Actually, same cost. So I've stopped stocking pink and I only do black because, well, I like the colors better. Pink buildings kind of stand out. But this will also hold up to UV longer, even though they still say 6 months. I know black pigments will hold up better than pink. We're going to throw on our rock wool, put on our furring strips, and we're good to go there. And then next up, so we've gotten our air barrier straight up over. Now we have to transition over this top plate to our trusses. We could take what I call a floppy smart membrane. Just lay it over, we flash it to the outside. This just flaps until we get our trusses set. Once our trusses are set, we would then put sheathing inside here, flap this up, and seal it for that continuous. What I don't like about this is, you know, there's framers standing on here, taking their hammers, beating these trusses left and right to line them up, subject to a little more damage than maybe this way. So here I've added a plate of 3, not even 1/2 inch, and I've used zip, extending it 2 inches. Then we can set our trusses, and you know they can stand on this without too much worry of damage. Get them set. Once we do that, we then put our zip sheathing up there. And while you could do liquid, first timers, overhead, let's probably tape it. Me, I've done it before. I would do liquid, but you could tape. And now we've got it continuous. So we've taken it from the basement straight up, over, back down, and then we have to put our straps. So these straps are meant to allow for a chase for your LED lighting, your fan light cans, things like that. But to save lumber or not, and I'm not certain of this idea, so chime in, anybody. You know you're going to have scrap material. Why not just make blocks? You'll have a little more area to work, chase through whatever mechanicals you need to get through there. This is free lumber here. You could even take this long 2x that's solid going through before the sheathing goes up, mark where your trusses are, put this on a sawhorse and get them all templated up and then throw them up. So there is a vote on that.
All
I
right, so
thought.
let's pause there for a moment. Any comments from the co-hosts here at this time?
I'd almost have to do it one time to see if I liked it or not.
I just wonder if it isn't less expensive. I'm just going to throw my thought out to just do a deeper cavity with one piece.
Where are you saying? Can you elaborate, Shannon?
All right, first of all, I should make sure I'm on the right poll because the chat is so active and so great. Thank you, everyone, for putting so many amazing suggestions in here and questions. So, Reid, which poll question are we on at present? Is it the service cavity?
I would think, but I've been talking and not looking at the poll, to be honest.
That's a genuine response,
airtime.
Reid.
Yeah.
Question 4.
Two layers. Yeah, question 4.
Service
Correct.
cavity, yeah.
Thank you, Gene.
So I was
But they say
thinking,
the
why
same
not
thing.
just do a deeper service cavity furring instead of a double system if you're not going to do a perpendicular?
Because then you have to drill holes to get through it. Here you can go anywhere you want.
All right,
whichever system you use, that or this.
Mm-hmm.
So to be fair to the poll, the question of the poll is to be answered. However, because we have a robust audience, if you have a suggestion, you add it to the chat, and that's what the overtime is all about.
Now, on the other hand, the poll seems to be slightly incorrect. 2 layers of 2x perpendicular framing or 2 layers of 2x perpendicular framing. Let's make the second one
What
with the
happens
blocks.
if the poll stays in the poll?
That's the danger of copy paste.
Reid, this poll was written by politicians, not by building scientists. So we received this from the White House itself, and Passivhaus Accelerator accepts no responsibility for the errors in which it received it.
Yeah,
You may have
that's
marked
right.
these Russians.
And since you're from Delaware, we wholeheartedly expect you to consult our White House representatives from your home
Well,
state.
I'm in the field here building this, so we need to make it work. So the first question or the first poll of the 2 layers, 2x perpendicular, will be this solid. And the second one, even though it's incorrect, will be the blocks. Will be that one. So you can vote for that.
That's perfect, Reid. So sometimes we test the audience with a trick question. So wink, wink. Glad you're paying attention.
All right, so you're going to vote on that. Any other comments on this before we move on? Installing a window.
Quick question, Reid. Is there a reason why you're asking for 3 inches of service cavity in the ceiling? It looks like there's 2 layers of 2x material, 3 inches total. Why would that be?
It doesn't have to be. It could be slightly less.
An inch
I
and a half
don't
is
know.
fine for LED lights. I don't know what else you're throwing up there.
So Kevin, I'm just going to interrupt for a moment here. We've got a lot of questions in the chat right now, and we're trying to hold them until the after hour. So I appreciate
But you're right,
the
Shannon.
question, and
If-
Reid, go ahead and answer it. But as a rule, let's try to keep them for the after hour.
All right, and you're right. If we can scab that down to 1x's instead of a 2x, we'll save money, and as long as there's enough space. Unless you're going to sprinklerize it, right, Kevin? Now we got pipe going through there. I need that space. Should we sprinklerize this?
I would sprinkler it, and I would use the combination system that you can run your cold water and your sprinkler system by Unipor or one of the new PEX companies. So there's a new system that you can do sprinkler and your domestic hot water runs. I mean domestic cold water runs. So
In the same pipe.
Wow,
yeah,
Huh,
that's
cool.
kind of huge.
it's cool. It's
Kevin, you would be proud of me. I built my house, renovated the barn to a house 15, 20 years ago, and I sprinklerized it
nice.
from a well.
Ooh, from a well. Ooh.
I got some big tanks in the garage. But being a commercial developer, that's what we did, and you know why we do it. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm going to move on to this beautiful rough opening and throw a window in there. And it will be my shameless plug for Handband 3E expanding foam tape. Not that you would sync with it this way, but this tape comes compressed, it expands, and inside there are your 3 air barriers. It's vapor open, it's thermal. It's just kind of a beautiful thing. And then we throw our window in here. And while you could use framing material or something, it's cheap. It's like a core or a nickel a piece. Armatherm, the lowest density. Normally your windows are going to sit roughly a 1/2 inch off the framing. So I'll cut this block 3/4 inch square by that 3/4 plus whatever your extrusion is on that window. And we will then cut square holes between 2 layers of that air barrier, set the blocks in there. We set our window down, and then we can strap it or screw it in whichever way we decide. And then if you were doing this in Germany, you'd be done. What I missed, oh, it skipped, okay. What I like to do is once it's fully expanded, and actually I've come back to job sites the following day and I can still see daylight. It takes time to fully expand. Give it a week, let it fully expand, do its thing, fill every nook and cranny, and then come in with a bead of air dam, or you could tape. Now, I don't care what happens in here, that window can leak, it's vapor open, it's going out. It cannot get inside. That is, for me, the cream of the crop for window installations. I think we've made the transitions all the way around. How's our timing, Shannon? I think I'm done, and I can put up my contact information and open it up for discussions.
Yeah, Reid, I'll tell you, I threw your contact info in the chat, but do it again. And everybody, please connect with Reid on social media. Learn a little bit more about what he does. And Reid, you're 1 minute over, so I'm afraid we're going to have to take away your free pass for tomorrow.
Bummer.
You are right on time. I'm kidding, of course.
You can blame Kevin Brown for that. That's why he's over.
Very nicely done. And I am still catching up on the chat. This is the first night I couldn't keep up. So
Shannon, we should let everyone know that they should finish their poll now, and then I will end the poll and share the results.
Yeah. So Zach, how about we give everyone 3 remaining minutes to finish their poll? So you guys have 3 remaining minutes to finish your poll. Take some screenshots of Zach and his wonderful new glasses and share it on social media. And while you're answering the poll and all of the questions in the poll, I'd like to thank Reid for this presentation. And how about let's get a comment from Vancouver 475 mobile camera. And Sean, while people answer the poll, can you give some feedback on the presentation you just saw?
Yeah, Reid, thanks a lot. This is great. And I mean, I can't wait to dive into the comments here because there's a lot of different ideas and I think that's what's great about this whole thing. is the collaboration. Like we create these events so we can discuss, we can debate, we can banter. You know, at the end of the day, the right method is the one that ends up being done, and that's what they go with. And so there's some great things being offered here, and I think, you know what, I'm just gonna keep it simple because I want to find out these results. So thanks, Reid. Thanks everyone for participating. And this could be a long night. I mean, we typically go an hour and then we do the overtime. See, I think we might be here for an all-night thing. We said, Reid, hey, you know, make sure you had some beverages because we could be here for a while. We're going to be pushing the boundaries tonight. So let's get into it.
You know, I see in the chat, someone posted, Robert did, code is a dirty word. I remember hearing a presentation, maybe from Sam, that great, you meet code, you get your occupancy permit, and code, you passed, right? That's good. Passing is a D. We should all strive to do better than that.
I hear that, Reid, and I'm just cruising through the chat and I'm seeing some folks agreeing with some of your blocking ideas for the service cavity. So I'll be eating my words in the after hour.
Kevin, you have the principals up while they're finishing up the final minute of their poll. What can you share with us, brother?
So I think the one thing that we didn't really talk about was window placement. And in Reid's last thing, he's got the window kind of like in between for a split wall. One of the big aha moments I have while teaching the tradesperson class is kind of like getting over to the crowd how easily you can take an R7 window, which is a good triple pane PVC window, and just by placing it in the wrong location and not in line with the insulation, you can turn that R7 window into an R4 window. So you're paying for R7, but the result you get an R4. So really pointing out that it needs to be in line with the insulation. The install needs to be high quality. It needs to be thermal bridge free, but it's really the R value of the window installed that matters. And that's where the PHPP model and the Passivhaus consultant really comes in, because they can help you make smart choices. I know the wall system that we're dealing with is exterior 4 inches, cavity insulation 6 inches. So it's kind of like in between fat wall. So is there an ideal place for it? Is it outside or is it inside or is it in between? Really, you have to evaluate that. And my personal suggestion is always mock-ups. You know, do a mock-up, figure out where the window meets both functionality and constructability, but also meets that Passivhaus Flexo thermal bridge model. So just something to keep in mind.
Until AI tells you the millimeter on where to put it.
Well, I'm a firm believer that the AI is coming, but
yes,
you shouldn't do anything automatic unless you can do it manually. So the guy who taught me how to run and blow a door, he refused to let me do it automatically with the manometer, the digital manometer. He made me use the magnehelic gauge, which is like an analog, gauge that I had to use. So I take value in that. I learned how to drive a car on a stick shift. And I think everyone should know where you come from before where you go, because once you give up all control, it's tough to go back.
That's right.
I think AI and the blower door, as Kevin said before, is a tool, and it allows the craftsmanship to be performed to its highest level. That was great indicator. So I think we can conclude, if you haven't completed your poll, you're banned from the rest of the evening, and we wish you well. Go have some Cheetos. So Zach, would you like to give the audience an update on what we're seeing in front of us?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So hopefully everybody can see the dialog box that's showing the poll results. On question 1, number 2 was the clear winner from the audience, under slab and footer and outside foundation wall. On number 2, choice number 3, 2x framing with structural foam thermal break, was the edged out ripped plywood as the winner. On number 3, air tightness, zip sheathing was the winner over sheet membrane or other options. On number 4, service cavity, the second version of layers of 2x. And can Reid, what was that again?
That would be the blocking instead of straight 2x's both ways.
That was the winner. And finally, number 5, moisture management, Reid's detail. or Reid's Detail. Reid's Detail 1.
There you go.
Happened. And I think only one person picked up on the fact that it was the same answer. How can we save this poll result? I know it saves in Zoom for us, but is there a way to save it other than a screen capture?
Well, Shannon, I took screenshots, so it will be posted and tagged to Passivhaus Accelerator. But I think later in the evening, Sean will share with us how we could save the chat. And I believe this portion of the presentation is recorded. So you could go back and view Reid's presentation followed by the poll. So it's perfect. And we have a lot of questions to get to. Before we get to the questions, Reid, would you like to come back to the mic and talk to us about your mentor?
Yeah, I need to share a screen with that one. You asked me that just the other day, and because we're involved in passive, my mind immediately went to Dan Whitmore, who was my teacher for Passivhaus trades. And thinking more overnight on that, it actually only goes back, not only, maybe 12 years now that I've been that involved in passive. Well, 12 years I started and then got deeper and deeper. I think I met Dan maybe 10 years ago. So yes, he's definitely my mentor, and it doesn't get any better than Dan. But then I started thinking about, that's only just the 10 or 12 years. I got a full life so far. I started thinking, okay, what other mentors might I have? And while I don't have a specific one, I just want to share moments in time, things that I do that influenced me through life or mentored me through life. Here's my mentor list. And at the top, and moving forward, Mass Timber is my mentor. The Passivhaus communities, whether it be international, FIAS, my local Green Building United, which originally was the Greater Philadelphia Passivhaus Alliance. Then a few people we know, the music that influenced me, and a few others. That's my list.
I encourage everyone, Reid, to take a screenshot of your mentor page and share it on social media. From Hammer in Hand to Jeremy Rifkin, Ed Mesria, Sam Raskin, and Mr. Left-Handed himself, Jimi Hendrix. This is a great ensemble.
Sam next to Jimmy has really got me.
That's what's influenced me through life. All right, everybody got a screenshot? I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Reid. That's fantastic. It was a great presentation. Thank you so much for giving everybody the opportunity to not only see what the strategies we're looking at to change things, but to give all those comments in the chat. Wait till you see these. I'm not going to be able to get to them all tonight. I can already tell. So apologies in advance, everyone. You're too fast and too smart for me. But we will definitely go over all of these, because the next step for Reid is to do the energy model for this and use these strategies. So kudos, great job to everyone.
So I think now's the point. We're almost at the end of the first hour that we give the microphone back to Zach, and we review what's coming and the folks that allowed us to be here this evening.
Thank you, and thank you, Reid. This has been fantastic. So everything that we do at the Accelerator is thanks to support from our sponsors, and I want to thank them heartily tonight. Our founding sponsors are 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxt Ingwe Architects, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, Glavel Foam Glass Gravel, Minutair All-in-One HVAC and Dehumidification Units, RDH Building Science, Rockwool North America, Stocorp, and Zola Windows. Our champion sponsor is SIGA, and our stakeholder partner is NYSERDA. Our patron sponsors are Aero Barrier, Inotech Windows and Doors, BR+A Consulting Engineers, US Engineered Wood T-Stud, and Brennan insulation, and airtightness. On the podcast right now, we have an interview with John Palmer of the Passivhaus Trust in the UK. Matthew Cutler Welsh has a great conversation with him about all sorts of TLAs, three-letter acronyms, including EPCs in energy performance credits or certifications. You'll have to listen to it to get the right acronym. It's a really interesting conversation about what's going on in Passivhaus uptake in the UK. So check that out. Tomorrow we have a fantastic presentation from Building Science Corp's Kota Ueno, who will be talking about interior retrofits of masonry buildings. A really interesting building science dive into that process. Next week on Construction Tech, we have Stephen Hessler from Holsrom System talking about unpacking the SIM method. And then on the Global Passivhaus Happy Hour, we have Melissa Furukawa of Peel Passive talking about lessons from a Passivhaus certifier. Oops, a little typo there. And then on May 20th, we have the Resilience in Canada Summit that is co-presented by Passive Buildings Canada, Passivhaus Canada, and Passivhaus Accelerator. So that's Thursday. It'll be a great presentation of 3 cool projects that are bringing resilience to communities across Canada. Thank you.